Alabama 24, Georgia 21. Man, oh man, just wish you guys could have been there. A lot of you were. Many more of you watched at home. Haven't seen the TV rating. I assume like 1 trillion people watched this. Brought to you by Quick Trip. We got down there courtesy of Quick Trip. I'm giving this game 4.5 Chalai on the 1 to 5 scale. That was the number one topic of conversation walking off the field last night. There were players, coaches, staffers, stadium workers even, who asked how many Chalai will this game get? Look at that scene. Who's got it better than us? In the history of human civilization, who has it better than us on a college football Saturday in the fall? I don't care if you're a Georgia fan or not. I don't care if you've ever been to Sanford Stadium. I would highly encourage you to take in a Saturday night high-level SEC game at Sanford Stadium. Those people have done big things with their in-game presentation, by the way, just before I get to the game itself. Because I was mildly to moderately critical of Georgia game day operations for a while. Not anymore. I've said this for a few years now. Man, they know what they're doing. They just, if you don't know and you're maybe in that line of work, go to a Georgia game. They really, really know what they're doing there. And they also found a way to get the rain out of there. There was a rainbow over the field before the game. Again, just fairy tale college football stuff. So, the longest home winning streak in the country is snapped. Pre-COVID. That was the last time someone had come into Sanford Stadium and beaten Georgia. And it was William Muschamp, of all people, who I'm told was at the game last night. So we go into this game. We predicted it last week. You'll remember I used the phrase competitive character a lot about Alabama. I did it after the Florida State game, and I continued to do it even as they beat UL Monroe and they beat Wisconsin, because I didn't care about UL Monroe and Wisconsin. Not that those games didn't matter, but it wasn't going to prove anything was back about Alabama. It wasn't going to prove anything was definitively solved about problems Alabama had. The Georgia game was going to be that. So the Georgia game happened last night. I thought Alabama had a number of matchup advantages in this game, but going into it, I picked Georgia. I picked them because I thought the road would shake Alabama, because I've seen it do it several times. I thought their offensive line would be a mess last night, because I've seen it happen before. I thought there'd be penalties all over the place, because there were, or turnovers, because there were in the Oklahoma game, Vandy game, FSU game this year. None of it. That's competitive character. I don't regret saying anything I said about Alabama. They just rectified it. So the first thing I want to tell you is Alabama felt a lot different last night. I'm around them a fair amount. So there is a reason you get paid a whole lot of money. Now, players get paid a lot of money these days as well, but coaches get paid a whole lot of money, and they always have. And this is where it shows up. Alabama's just different now. I don't know if they needed to taste their own blood. I don't know if they needed to have their competitive character called into question. Whatever it was, it worked. It worked. They just fundamentally feel different. Been around them a while. They feel different. They handled last night differently. They showed up in warm-ups. Just felt different. Been around them long enough to know. Felt different. Obviously, if you watched the game, it looked different. They had one false start the whole night. The place was insane. I couldn't hear the people next to me talking to me. And they're not only one false start the whole night, operationally, they went in there like they were working in the indoor facility. The offense opened with 2 14-play drives, up 14-0. It's the classic, here we go again, which is eternal now. It's just evergreen for Georgia fans when they play Alabama. You don't believe in ghosts. You don't believe in goblins. You don't believe in any of that stuff, but you believe in Alabama. If you're a Georgia fan, it's got to be a nightmare, because it doesn't even matter how good you've looked. When they're across the field from you, 53 1/3 yards away, there are those crimson helmets. Here we go again. And it happened again last night. 13 of 19 on third down. Let's just talk about this for a second. All the stuff that was vintage Alabama under Nick Saban, and in the early portions of the Kalen DeBoer tenure, as well as the latter portions of the Nick Saban tenure, had started to wane a little bit, just re-sledgehammered you to the face last night. 13 of 19 on third down. That is the most third down conversions Georgia has allowed in 30 seasons. Home or away, I don't care. That's the most they've allowed in 30 seasons. DeBoer and Grubb just put on a clinic. And I got to tell you, I'm on the field for this game. It was a night game, so a lot of staffs, around the country had already had their games that day. Everyone's watching. These are some of the coaching matchups everyone in the coaching industry is fascinated by. They're interested in. They talk about it all week amongst themselves. I kid you not. During the game, I am getting text from other coaches, just random across the country, talking about Ryan Grubb, just putting Kirby and his staff in a blender. Not in like a demeaning way or anything like that. I just mean not to whiteboard you, because I'm not about to do that because I'm not qualified for it, but just other coaches watching in real time and pointing out little nuances, little intricacies, little things here and there. Look at this bunch set. Look at this motion. Watch the check. Watch what Kirby's defense does. Look at their sideline. Look how crazy this drives them. And it was an all-night thing. So again, it's just the worst case scenario if you're Georgia, because you had to deal with Saban for a long time, but the whole SEC had to deal with Saban for a long time. So once he's out of there, it can't get any worse. And then they bring in a guy who has terrorized Dan Lanning, who came from your coaching tree, and beaten him 3 times, I think it was. And then he comes in and is up 28-0 on you the first time he faces you last year. And then he goes immediately into your building and does the same thing again. And it's worst case scenario because what was supposed to be like a new era post Nick Saban at Alabama is still giving you nightmares. So Alabama goes on the road and they do that, and they have one false start, which I thought was the most impressive part of the entire evening, and that's even with Ty Simpson's stat line that we're about to get to. They had fewer penalties than their opponent for the first time under Kalen DeBoer. How did Alabama look different, Josh? That's one way they look different. That's atypical so far for them under him. Now, the question becomes, what did we see last night? Well, we saw Alabama beat Georgia. That's a big deal. Did we see a turning of the page? Did we see the beginning of a new trend? Will you look back on the Georgia game 3.5 years from now and say, since the Georgia game, or maybe the better way to put it is, since the beginning of the Alabama-Georgia game, Alabama has done this, they've done that. It really felt like that to me, but I don't know, because only time can tell. They control that. But only time can tell on that. They had a 77-53 plays run edge. They just tilted the game so quickly. Red zone. I would say, Jesse, along with that third down number being 13 of 19, I would say 4 of 4 for 24 points in the red zone, while Georgia was 2 of 3 for 14 points is a pretty big deal. I cannot, in strong enough terms, praise Ty Simpson on this show. For 2 reasons. The first of which is he's hung around there forever. Dante Moore just crushed Penn State last night. Well, they didn't blow him out, but you know what I mean, just shined. And he's a transfer guy. That's great. Carson Beck looks really good at Miami. That's great. There is a special corner of my heart for guys who commit to a school, do not immediately win the job, and then they stick it out, and then they get better and better and better, and then their number's called. And they're probably not going to get 4 years to start or 3 years to start, but they make the most of the time they have. Well, that's Ty Simpson. And so then his season, and really his career as a starter, begins the way it did at Florida State. It's so easy to look back on this. It just rolls off the tongue. And then what happened? And then what happened? But in real time, those days and those hours and those minutes, there was no way to speed them up. And that had to be torturous for Kalen DeBoer. But hey, DeBoer can be at Alabama an infinite amount of years. You don't really get that as a player. You get a small window. And within that window, you get a few big moments. And Ty Simpson's first big moment, through no fault of his, in my opinion, crashed and burned. And so then what'd they do? Well, he played about as razor sharp as you could play, but it's against UL Monroe, it's against Wisconsin, so we'll see when he goes on the road. He probably, all things considered, played better than he played those previous 2 games against Georgia. And there's something to be said about guys who are field generals. A stat line's one thing, but you've seen teams before where quarterback plays good, but it's not really the nucleus of the team. Probably not even looked at as a team leader. Normally when they're good, they are. In an ideal world, they are. But you never know that dynamic. If you're around Alabama, I think they showed a lot of really good pregame B-roll last night that showed you that's a field general. And then his play has to back it up. It doesn't matter how much you run your mouth if your play doesn't back it up, because Things just go in one ear and out the other. Guys roll their eyes. Not when you win. Not when you put them in a position to win. When you put a receiver in position to win, when you put offensive linemen in the best position to win, when tailbacks know you under center gives them the best chance to win, all eyes are locked on you. You can talk as long as you want to. And that's where Ty Simpson finds himself now. He was 16 of 24 for 196 yards and 2 touchdowns just in the first half. And to be honest, if you told me Friday that was his game line, it wouldn't have really stood out to me all that much. I would have said, that sounds about right. That was his first half. Those first half touchdown drives, to me, more than the numbers themselves, watching him operate was amazing from field level. Because I know that they crank those mics up on TV. You can never appreciate how loud that place was field level unless you were standing on the field last night. And I've watched them as just an offensive operation get really shaken by that for several trips on the road now. And then there he is out there. All the reason in the world to be shaken. There they are as a team. All the reason in the world to be shaken. And on that first drive, it was so crazy to watch from field level. I swear to you, there are multiple plays on that 14-play drive. Choose which one, right? There are 2 of them right there to start the game. I think he checked in and out of like 2 different plays. And that clock's running down 10, 9, 8. It sounds like multiple jet engines on a tarmac at Hartsfield. You can't hear anything. And he did everything but yawn. It just looks like he's going through repetitions in the summer. So calm, so at ease. And ball snap with 2 seconds, 1 second to go. Firmly in control, third down conversion, third down conversion, third down conversion. A lot of those throws are over the middle of the field. A lot of them are in traffic. Can't say enough good things about him. As many passing first downs as Georgia had total first downs. Can't say enough good things about him. Just a complete field general. Ryan Williams dropped that probable touchdown pass early. It's a thing he struggled with a little bit more. I'll tell you one thing that got overlooked a little bit that I think helps him a lot. I mean, he dropped that ball. He's wide open. He has blistered that defense. He's wide open, just drops it. Hey, wait just a second. I appreciate you guys watching. Most of you are subscribed. If you're not, please do so. It's free. It helps us keep the show free, and that's how we do college football year-round. All right, back to the video. You fast forward to the fourth quarter, and they throw him a ball up the right sideline, and he took what is the equivalent of a pretty serious car crash worth of a tackle and popped right back up. Ball never came out, and it's just moved the sticks first down. From a mental standpoint, I look at stuff like that, and I say, dude, the normal person goes into a complete shell. Even if they had Ryan Williams' physical ability and they could get open and they were playing major college football in front of millions of people, already knowing they're talking a little bit about your inconsistencies catching the ball. If you drop that ball, you are done mentally. Well, he's not normal. Guys in that position aren't normal. And to just watch that fourth quarter, you fast forward a couple hours, fourth quarter, catch, bam. Most people are being carted off. Again, these are elite athletes. They're not most people. Just pops right back up. Move the sticks. First down. Don't even need to sub out. I think that's pretty important. Just tuck that play away. I think that's pretty important. So the Georgia side of all this, it can't be ignored. I never really like getting caught up in this whole Kirby Smart against Alabama thing, but you can't ignore it. He's got an Alabama problem. They got an Alabama problem. Part one of the Bama problem was the same one everyone had, and that was, man, they got Nick Saban. He's going to have the best roster in the country. And even if we recruit heads up with him, we'll never out-recruit him. So the best we can hope to do is compare rosters, maybe match rosters. But then they still got Nick Saban on game day. He'll still have a great staff. So that was always hard for obvious reasons. But Saban retired. You finally got one up on him. It took to a national championship game for you to do it, but you knocked that big domino down, and that's a huge domino. That was part one of the Bama problem. Then part two of the Bama problem is they bring a guy in that just gives you fits. Schematically, just gives you fits. And it's happened now a couple of times. And like I said, DeBoer's done it against Dan Lanning. They really had no clue how to handle him when he was at Washington and they were at Oregon. That's a very similar defensive scheme for obvious reasons. That's the tree Lanning came from. So it looks like that Alabama problem's not going anywhere until you do something about it. And I'm not really sure what you do about it because these aren't blowouts. All of these are close games, competitive games. You believe a touchdown catch that's dropped could be the difference here. Maybe if I had it to do over again, I don't go for it on 4th and 1. I kick the field goal, I tie the game. Who knows what happens? I'm just saying, remember when they won their second national title in a row? This was 23 or 22, whenever it was. I got in a knockdown drag out with Georgia fans innocently because I said to a fan who asked how many titles I thought Kirby would win, I said, I don't know. This may be it for him. It may be 2. Most guys never win 1. How do you know he's going to just go on to win more titles? Which I thought was a fair take. Their stance was, he's just won his second title in a row. And you think to yourself, all right, well, now there's just this long runway. We can't even see the end of the runway. He's going to be here for another 15 plus years. We're going to finish top 3 in recruiting every cycle. Saban's got to retire eventually, and sure enough, he did. What's going to stop us? The sport will stop you because it never stops adjusting to you. That's the price you pay for being on top. It never stopped for Saban. That was the price he paid for being on top. The difference is he never relinquished the top spot. Now, the game was changing. Saban didn't like the way it looked, so he got out because his legacy was secured. Kirby Smart's legacy will never be in doubt. The guy's won 2 national titles. He has built a total and complete monster at Georgia. So if he retired today, he's a legend, instant Hall of Famer. But my point then is the same as it is now. The sport never stops changing. There are consequences that successful people have. There are consequences successful programs have that failing programs never even know about. They think it's just first world, no problems. You're on the yacht. Who would ever cry on the yacht? Well, what you find is you find everyone's got the crosshairs on you when you're on top. And that's been Kirby in Georgia for a long time. And now it's pretty obvious watching them in the portal era, in the high-level NIL era. They don't have the kind of players Miami has. They don't have the kind of players a number of these programs have. Both of these programs here, by the way, play NIL sort of the same way. And I understand it because I would play it like Kirby does. I would look at it and I would say there is immense value for the next 40 years of your life if you commit to play football at the University of Georgia. You can't make every difference maker feel that way. And you watch them defensively. They don't have difference makers defensively. And a couple of them they brought in, Elomadozi, has been a non-factor so far. I don't know why that is, because I think they felt good about him. I felt really good about him. I thought they had hit a home run and gotten a kid from Army, and that was going to be one of the talking points of the season. It's just not there. They're in the 100s in pressure rate statistics. They still don't have a sack on the season. People accidentally sacked the quarterback over the span of multiple 4-quarter games. In their case, a couple of them against very inferior opponents. So I'm saying all that to say his best rosters are behind him. You can say that about everybody because the elite teams are no longer going to stack talent like they used to, which just means you've got to be able to beat guys on game day. You've got to be able to beat other staffs on game day. And my fundamental mild concern for them when DeBoer got to Alabama is I felt Alabama made a hire keenly aware of the direction the sport was headed. By that I mean they understood Bama nor any other team in that league was ever going to have that insurmountable a talent edge on the rest of the league anymore. NIL was not going to allow it. The tops of the trees had been shaved off. You may still have an edge, but it will not be this unequivocal edge. So you better get a guy who can win games on game day. You better get a staff that can beat other staffs 10 times out of the year. And Alabama's got one, and they've put it on display against Georgia. I don't think I'm saying anything they don't realize there. The difference is I can say it consequence-free in a microphone. Kirby can't just snap his fingers in the middle of a season and do something about that. I think they will. They won't rest until they get it right there. They may never get it right. I don't know. But the days of just throwing that Georgia helmet out there and understanding that gets us 10.5 wins per season is gone. Still the best program in the country to me. I think the University of Georgia is the best football program in the country. But that stuff last night, that'll keep happening. As long as you can't affect the quarterback, that'll keep happening. And for all the talk about those difference makers they got at wide receiver, it may be that Gunnar Stockton's talent profile limits what they can do with those additions at receiver. So again, these are problems, these are nitpicking problems that you would never point out with a team that perennially goes 7-5 or 8-4. This is Georgia. They're supposed to compete for a national championship. So the one thing to remember is Bama got knocked down in week 1. So I was talking to someone last night, and I told them best thing to happen to Bama, as it turns out, is losing that game in week 1. They said, how could that possibly be? Who wants to lose a game? No one wants to lose a game. But if you're like me and you believe no one's going undefeated anymore, then you understand the losses have to come somewhere. So if the losses are inevitable, then the next question is, when are they going to happen and what are you going to learn from them? Alabama's loss could not have been put to better use. Alabama lost to Florida State, and it looks like it completely rewired everything about the team, and maybe in some cases, things about that head coach, and in many cases, things about the entire organization. Because, man, they walked into that building last night, and they carried themselves a whole lot different than Alabama at any point last year. It seemed kind of familiar in years gone by. Just the way they walked into a very hostile building and never blinked. In fact, they took the fight to the tenant as the visitor. So I've seen what it does to Alabama to lose a game. What's it going to do to Georgia to lose a game? Now they taste their own blood. They were going to lose. They weren't going to go undefeated. So they taste it now. Week 4? They taste it. We're headed into week 5, or are we headed into week 6? Whatever it is. Point being, I think that's one of the best staffs in the country at responding, because I think the program mentally is wired in such a way to respond. But it's not because they're magically going to discover this vaunted pass rush that they used to have. They don't have those players. So they're going to have to find wins on the margins. They're going to have to do a lot of stuff that's atypical to say that Georgia has to do. But that's college football now. That's it. It's watching Bama last night. Look at the way that defense plays. They failed to set the edge multiple times. I could run for 15 yards around the corner where Damani Jackson is. There's a lot of stuff that looks incomplete. You gash them here, you gash them there, busted coverage, wide open for a touchdown. You're not suffocating people anymore. This is just not happening. So you got to win on the margins. That's what you have to do. And you're going to have to get comfortable about 3 or 4 times a year. You're going to have a dogfight, fourth quarter, late decided game on your hands, whereas you used to be up 42-10. And that's just the way you got to do it. And if you're not comfortable with that, you may not be cut out for this. And that goes for coaches and that goes for players. So I'm excited. I've seen what Bama did with the loss. I'm excited to see what Georgia did with the loss. But man, oh man, I don't care who wins and loses. I care that as many of you as can possibly make it happen need to go down there and just watch a Saturday night game at Georgia. I cannot speak glowingly enough about the entire game day operation there. Unbelievable. The only thing that didn't go right for them last night is the outcome, because everything else was spot on. So full credit.